This script took a couple rewrites to get right, but hopefully this finished product works out. I'll start off by talking a little bit about the piece in the background right now, then get into a thought piece that came to me as I was scratching my head trying to write a long enough script to cover the whole video. I'm also testing out a couple different ways of recording audio, so please bear with me. For this piece, I wanted to do an adult Luka design that wasn't just a tired sort of, oh yeah, he's a rocker, so he'll probably shave his head and look like that one guy from Big Bang adult design. This, combined with the fact that I've been obsessed with boys with braided ponytails lately, meant that Luka just became the latest victim to that obsession. The ponytail bit is honestly the only special part about this Luka design. I didn't really have the foresight to come up with a complex shirt or background, so I kept it vague and just gave him a Kitty Section logo thing on it, because presumably Kitty Section released some merch eventually. Probably, even if they didn't, I feel like Marinette would be pretty insistent on making Kitty Section themed clothes, at least for the people involved in it. And now a little bit more about the piece itself. As you watch, you might notice that the video sorta skips around a bit between the sketches and stuff, and it's mostly because my computer starts to lag a little when I record, especially once I start adding more layers or when the video starts getting a little longer, so I had to pause the video in between. I ended up getting too frustrated at trying to do smooth lines on a laggy computer, so I just paused the recording completely and did the finishing touches on the line art, and then restarted the recording once I started doing the coloring process. And the actual coloring process, I mean, I normally hate coloring because it's really boring. It's just it's just like those coloring books that you did when you were a kid, and you're like, ah yeah, coloring the lines, fun, yay, no, not really. But, I mean, I do enjoy doing shading, though, because you get to, like, do the little details or make it look more polished. And in this case, the shading process was really fun, because while I was airbrushing Luka's skin, I was sort of taken aback eventually by how smooth it looked. You can see I kind of pause at the part where I'm coloring his arm, and I'm like, wow, that bicep looks really round. And I don't know if it's kind of weird or anything, but I mean, I guess it means that my method for coloring skin is working out this time. Another thing I had a lot of fun doing was shading his hair. There's just a really cathartic feeling to shading braided hair that I just really adore. Both shading and adding highlights to braided hair is, I don't know, I just have a lot of fun doing it. That and adding highlights to eyes are probably my two favorite bits of, like, coloring and rendering. Unfortunately, the eyes part is, like, not even the eyes, I guess. I don't always do either of those things. I don't know why I've been denying myself this, like, luxury. I guess it's because, like, most of the characters I draw have, like, smaller eyes because they're adults and proportionally their eyes are smaller. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, rendering and coloring is just really boring and tedious, and I don't even know. I mean, usually it's worth it in the end, but it's boring while I'm doing it. Now, let's talk a little about my topic of the day and probably the title of my video. Why I hate the genre of action romance, with a focus specifically on Miraculous Ladybug, just to sort of tie in this whole thing. Now, don't get me wrong, I love this show. Like, Miraculous Ladybug is just really fun and refreshing and upbeat, which is kind of everything I look for in a show these days. I like the designs of the characters, for the most part. Maybe I'll talk a little bit later about why Marinette's design, well, Ladybug's design is kind of boring, and why I seriously wish she wasn't just a superhero wearing red spandex. Anyway, yeah, I do, however, dislike that it's a romance story that's not so cleverly disguised as a superhero show. Like, a lot of shows, movies, etc. in the superhero franchise, like, genre, have some kind of romantic subplot which, you know, it pairs off its main characters with some side characters or with other main characters in an effort to gain attention, because romance sells, and so does the other thing, but we won't talk about it here because we all know what else sells. Most of these romantic subplots are actual subplots, though, in that they don't really interfere with the main plot and are largely kept to one or two scenes. But, I mean, obviously the opposite is never cool either. Like, that one scene from Captain America Civil War where Cap briefly, for, like, one scene, gets together with his dead girlfriend's, like, niece? It's totally out of the blue and completely unnecessary. And not only is it redundant to the plot, but it actually reduces the meaning of her character's existence from, this is someone who is related to someone from Steve's past, to, oh, right, a romantic B-plot, like, interest, whatever. That and the fact that there was no time for them to actually develop some chemistry beyond, like, 2 scenes where they make eye contact, and she's like, hi, and he's like, hi. Like, and Marvel honestly is collectively a coward. I'm calling them out right now for not giving Cap a boyfriend instead. As you can probably guess, Stucky is my ship of choice in the MCU. For good reason, and for that very same reason, I won't be acknowledging Endgame. End for Steve, because I have a lot of opinions about that too, but that's for later. Miraculous Ladybug is like the opposite end of the spectrum, though. I mean, just listen to the theme song. It's like not even really about Ladybug and Cat Noir's adventures. Like, you don't even really hear about Cat Noir. You just hear about Ladybug in the theme song that like you hear in the main show. And when you listen to the extended version, it's literally just 2 minutes of them singing about pining for each other. It like doesn't mention Hawkmoth. It doesn't mention anything that they really do beyond that Ladybug is lucky and the best and up for the test, or whatever other generic stuff that you usually assume is true about superheroes. And it's just not a very good summary for the show at all. Like, a show that's a similar genre of like that sort of like because like Miraculous Ladybug was inspired by like the magical girl genre, and Steven Universe is also a Western show inspired by the magical girl genre, so we'll talk about that theme song a little bit. So the theme song goes, "We are the Crystal Gems, we'll always save the day," which is literally just the plot of the show if you want to summarize it in one sentence. And if you think we can't, we'll always find a way. Also about the plot. That's why the people of this world believe in Garnet, Amethyst, Pearl, and Steven, which are the 4 main characters of the show. It's really simple, and basically functions as a plot summary for dummies for anyone who's getting into Steven Universe for the first time. Miraculous Ladybug, on the other hand, is primarily focused on the love story between 2 superheroes. And, oh yeah, right, the main antagonist also exists, but he's actually really just there to be a reason for the superheroes to exist. Like, he's the reason why the superheroes exist, so the superheroes can fall in love with each other. That's kind of the plot of Miraculous Ladybug at this point. And I'm not saying it's, like, bad, but it's kind of shallow in my opinion. The world of Miraculous Ladybug is such a cool world. Like, I would kill to know more about Master Fu and, like, the history of the Miraculouses. And, like, they give a bunch of really generic things about, oh yeah, it's from China or whatever, or it's from, like, some generic, like, East Asian country, which, by the way, is really bad representation for East Asian countries of just being exotic sources of ancient powers, which... Alright, I mean, I understand the guy who's writing this show isn't even East Asian, and, like, this whole bit about, like, magical girls are a genre that started in Japan. And the main character is half Chinese. I mean, take from that how you will, but, like, as a Chinese person, it's kind of offensive that, like, oh yeah, it's just generically East Asian, blah blah blah, whatever. But, like, at least they made the Dragon Kwami accurately an East Asian dragon and not related to fire. But, like, anyways, more back to, like, my actual gripe with the show. It's just that a lot of the actual plot points, like the origin story, Hawkmoth's backstory, etc., are thrown out for cheap episodes where we just get to see Marinette be manic and stalkery about Adrian. It's kinda cringy, I guess. I mean, like, you can tell that she's really obsessed with him, and it's really, really creepy. Like, I don't use cringy lightly, and I definitely don't like cringe culture, but this is totally unrelated to that. It's like, I actually feel, like, oh, why? Because she's literally breaking into Adrian's house using a disguise, and in that very same episode, she's also standing up her friends who are obviously valuable relationships with her, because, like, she talks to Alia so much, and she talks to a lot of her other classmates so much. In fact, I feel like Adrian's probably the only person that she doesn't regularly talk to, which is kind of ironic, but anyway, like, and she also collects pictures of him that she puts on her wall. Like, this is the kind of thing you'd expect from, like, serial killers or, like, yanderes circa 2015. I just don't like how the romantic B-plot has really taken over the show and now actually, like, defines the show for what it is, rather than being something that's like, oh, it's like, oh yeah, this is happening alongside the main plot, which is about Hawkmoth and blah blah blah, right? And the romance is really just something that the creators dangle in front of the audience at this point, because I know for a fact that the day that Ladybug and Cat Noir actually get together, or Marinette and Adrian, is the day that the show ends, because it's kind of the big thing that they've been building up to, and what's gonna happen after that? Who knows? And basically at that point, the show's kind of over, and that's why I wish they didn't put so much emphasis on the B-plot. That was a major mistake on the creators' part, because, like, once the B-plot is over, once they get together, a lot of the fans are going to lose interest, because that's kind of what's carrying the show right now. Because even if I personally don't care for it, a lot of people do. In fact, I'd argue that 90% of the fanbase care deeply about the romantic B-plot, and if the B-plot were to be resolved too soon, the fandom would lose interest. So, like, they kind of dug their own grave in, like, making such a big emphasis on the fact that this is a romance story with superheroes in it, rather than a superhero story with romance in it. Like, there's a big difference between the two of them in that one focuses on romance and the other focuses on superheroes and world building and storytelling, rather than just, oh yeah, they're just going to, like, tease each other for another 3 seasons, which is basically what's been happening so far. And because, I mean, I sort of get it, because a lot of the people in the fan base, like the 90% I'm talking about, they're between the ages of, like, I want to say 10 and, like, 17-ish, which is, like, close enough to the age range of the characters for them to actually feel invested in the romance of between the characters. And for a lot of them, they haven't been really introduced to the idea that love is not about falling in love. Because a lot of these people are, like, for them, falling in love is more appealing than actually being in love. Which is why I don't like the way that this is a romance action story versus, like, I don't know, like Good Omens. Good Omens is also a romance action story in my opinion, because it's a romance story between Crowley and Aziraphale, right? But, like, it's actually about them having chemistry with each other. It's established very early on that they've spent 6,000 years getting to know each other, and, like, slowly over that amount of time they've just sort of gotten used to each other being around, and, like, they actually genuinely like each other. Whereas, like, in this case, Marinette just thinks Adrian's attractive, and Cat Noir is only really, like, attracted to surface level what Ladybug is. So it just feels shallow after being exposed to things like Good Omens, where there's, like, a big, like, they're not just falling in love, it's about them staying in love, and it's actually really nice. So TLDR, Miraculous Ladybug is a great show, but I would love it so much more if they were to put more emphasis on the plot of the show versus the romance, which is basically a B-plot. Because now the B-plot is defining the show, and I'm just, like, slogging through those episodes like, yeah, okay, can we, like, get to the actual story, please? Thank you. Anyway, thanks so much for watching all the way through to the end, and I hope you've enjoyed me rambling about hating romance in action shows. Please keep an eye out over the next few weeks, because I will finally be releasing a video about Good Omens, considering, like, every other video so far I've talked about Good Omens. So, yeah, I also have a few lower effort videos queued up to release whenever I don't have time to make a higher effort video like this one. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and catch you guys in the next one. Yeah.